So hey there, it's Philly here at Fidelity Factory. Welcome back to this video on how to create this project team management canvas app. In the last video we covered how to create a new item. In this video we're going to look at kind of how to edit an existing item. So what we have so far is when I click this new button here, it brings me to this screen here, which is called screen detail, and we can enter in, like, let's say a employee name, their project, and a comment to go with it, and then we can save it and it creates a new line in our Sharepoint list over here. What we're going to do today is then get it so that when I click on an item in my gallery here, it'll bring me to that page. I have all this populated and I can kind of edit it and then save it and save a new change, which is handy. You might notice that there's this red X here. It's just to do with what we have in there. Sometimes it can give you a slight issue at first, but if we go in and look at this, let's say look at this, and it's to do with this bit of code up here. If we go and look at what's going on in there, let's unlock this. Sometimes you're gonna, when using them forms, they can come locked and you need to unlock them to kind of edit them. When I click up here, it's gonna begin to process what's going on in there, and it should clear off that error after a little bit of time. It's just using that kind of employee searching field can be a bit taxing on it, so at first it'll struggle. So same here, I'm going to actually unlock these fields as we go. So I'm clicking into the text box element and unlocking them because we're going to be using them as we go through today. So first, now let's go back to our gallery screen over here. So far we've got this thing where we click this new button. All we have there is that it brings us to the detail screen where we actually edit the information. We've nothing there right now that denotes that it's a new item or anything like that, so that's something we're going to have to look at. But first, let's have a look down here at this little button here. So when I click on this, I'm going to want it to bring me to the next page and also then gather up all the information that's to do with whatever line I click on. So let's start there. So right now the onSelect of this is parent, but that means it selects the whole bar across, but I don't think we have a whole lot going on the onSelect of our parent. So I'm just going to go in here and edit this information on that arrow there, so that when I click this arrow, it'll bring me to the next page. So let's start with that. That's going to be a navigate to our screen detail. I'm going to pick a navigate, screen transition cover. That's just the style that it's going to slide over. It's kind of like a one page slides on top of the other. It's a nice transition. And now what I want to do is gather up all the information. So what I'm going to do is put in these curly brackets. It's going to create a kind of a context variable for us here. And I'm going to call it var display person. You can name it whatever you want. I just pick and display person because we're going into kind of per person, or let's say display project might make more sense. And it's just something that we're going to store, like let's say this project in here, and I'm going to hit these dots here, and then I'm going to put in, very simple, this item. You'll notice that there's a lot of options here for this item.created, this item.employee. You can get like all the information from this item, but if I just go for this item, it will actually bring over a full table with it that has everything we need. So that's really useful there. So now when I click in that, it's going to, let's say, bring me to that next page because I have the navigate. But if I look up my variables, so let's view our variables up here that we've got going on. var display project, you'll see this little table icon here. And let's see, I'm going to click in here again, and you can see it has all that information that came with it: the modified time, the project name, a bunch of kind of meta information, the comment. So it brings everything with it, so we're able to use it rather than, let's say, setting up one variable to just one different thing at a time. Now let's hop back to our gallery screen again, because now we have it so that when I click in here, it recognizes that there's an existing item and it brings that information with it. But I do need to update my new button so that it doesn't bring any information with it. So let's say on my new button, I'm going to keep this as it is. It has that screen transition cover that I like. And I'm going to once again, I'm going to update that same variable. So I've put in a curly brace and I can see the variable has been kind of suggested to me there. I'm going to put that in and I'm just going to make it a blank. So this way when I click the new button, it's going to not populate any of that information, which is going to be a little bit nicer. So it's going to keep it as blank. So now when I click in here and I click the new button, if I go and view my variable up here, variable var display project, it has no value, it's blank. So it's ready then to take in new information. So now we've got it in such a way that when I click one of these little arrows here, let's click Brad here, it's bringing Brad's information in this variable var display project. Now what we need to do is get it to display that information automatically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click into my employee up here and I'm going to click right onto that text box there, or the drop down. I've called it CBO employee in a previous video. You might have to do that thing we did earlier where we click to advanced and unlock before you can edit. But what I'm going to put in here is look for the default. And on this one, because it's a drop down, there's two. There's default and default selected items. I'm going to go for default selected items. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the variable where we're storing all that information, var display project. And I'm going to take out the bit of information I want, which I assume I labeled employee. And there it is, employee. So you can see it's already after auto-populating with Brad's name there. And I'm going to do the same down here on project. I'm going to go, now because project's a text field, I'm just going to go to the default. There's no default selected because it's not really a field where you can select anything. So I'm just going to put in once again var display, take that variable. It has all the information I could possibly need. So I'm going to put in a dot. This is where I traverse kind of like what information I actually want out of it. I want the project there. So project, so it's populating that, and I'm going to do the same again with my comment. So once again, go to default, and I'm going to go for var display project dot, and this should be comment. So now I've got this situation that if I hit the play button up here, and actually let's hop back out to my gallery screen. I'm spotting something here that's annoying. I have no control here to actually bring me back to my gallery screen. So right now I can hit save, but nothing's bringing me back. And actually maybe that's something we'll add in now, because then that's when it begins to feel like a proper, let's say, app. So I'm going to go up here to insert. I'm going to go over to my icons. And I want to go back to like the home page. So I'm going to put in this little house image. Move it over here. Let's put the text into white, or the color of it as white, just to fit in with the rest of the text or up here on that top bar. And just click on that button. And I'm going to put in a navigate. And we're going to go back to our gallery screen. And I might actually make this a cover right, because it's kind of like my screen transition cover right. So it kind of goes backwards to the home screen. So now I actually can demo my app and I can actually move freely through it. So I'm able to kind of click that home button, return here. The way we've set it up, hopefully when I click this new button, create new, yeah, it gives me app all blanks there, which is handy. But if I hit my home button, return home, if I go down here and click rem, it gives me the details of rem's app already here, which is great. So it's ready now to be edited. If I click me at the bottom there, it gives me that information there. So this is really handy now. It's kind of set up, ready for me to edit my information. The only thing that's a problem still is that my save right now is just set up to save a new item. So if I, let's say, for example, take the line here that says Sean here, blah, 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 and I'm gonna, the project is called making a SharePoint list. If we edited that and said, this is edited now, it's just throwing extra information onto the edit these. lines. If I hit save there, it's going to create a span new item. Let's hop back and have a look. I'm going to hit my refresh button down here. It created a span new item rather than editing that item up there, because we don't have any logic on it right now to say that like it needs to be edited, let's say. So let's see what we can do about that. So I'm going to click this button here, and we're just going to have to change some of the information that's going on our save button here. So right now we've got this patch statement, and we're just going to kind of elaborate on that a little bit. So what we want to do is check, and the way we're going to do this, we're going to check to see, is there a matching item in Sharepoint that matches our, let's say, our var display item that we take when we click a button. So if when we click on our gallery screen, we click one of these buttons, is there a line that matches, let's say, the code that's here, or is it blank? And if it's blank, we'll create a new one. That's the idea of what we're going to write here. So under my save, I'm going to keep that there for now. I'm just going to move it to the bottom. But under my save, I'm going to add a little bit more information. So I'm going to keep my patch, actually. Start off with the patch. We're going to patch that SharePoint list. That's our SharePoint list in the background. Project team management list. We're going to patch that. But I'm going to put in an if, because we're going to decide, is this something that exists already? So if we look up our project team management list, so we're going to look up our project team management list, and if the ID of one of those items on that line, so each item in here has a secret ID, it's not shown right now. I can actually go into, on my SharePoint list, go to show high columns, and I can show the ID. That's very simple. It's just like an auto incrementing ID, but it's unique then. It's something we can identify each line with. So if the ID of my project team management list is equal to, let's say, my var display project dot, and that variable takes all the information that took the project name, but it'll also have the ID, so I can see if it matches like that. I'm going to put in a little thing here where it says, well, if it does match, we're going to say, just create a thing that says exists. And I'm sure there's better ways of doing this, but I like this way, it makes sense to me. So if that exists, and so if it therefore equals exists, then what we want to do is, create just edit something that's already there. If it already exists, then what we're going to do is look up our project team management list, where the ID is equal to var display our project. And I know there's a bit of duplication up here, but that's the if up there, and here's our actual kind of working code that's actually going to do the work then. So we're going to look up where our ID in that list in our SharePoint matches the ID in our variable. And otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to what's called defaults, which is create a span new thing. So this is a little line of code that we need to create a new item. So otherwise, if it doesn't exist, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new item in the default in the project team management list. So a little bit tricky, but it's good. And I'm going to close out that bracket to the if statement, put in a comma here, and now I can delete back up towards this, and we actually have everything we need there now. So just to look at it, once again, what we do is we look up our project team management list, and we see if the ID of any item in our SharePoint list matches the ID that's in our var display project. So if I've clicked on an existing something, there should be an ID with it. If I've clicked new, there shouldn't. And if there is, we're going to say it exists. So if this bit of logic equals exists, then what we do is we look up that existing project and we're going to edit it. Otherwise, it's this line here, this defaults. Now what defaults does is it tells the system to, let's say, create a span new line item. So now, when I hit my play button, and I'm going to hit home, and I am going to click one of my line items here. So let's click Brad here, and I'm going to edit Brad's project. So I'm going to edit this project, and I'm going to edit this comment. This should recognize now that this is an existing item that needs to be edited, and rather than create a new item, it should edit it. So I'm going to go home here, and we can still see Brad says new project is complete, but I'm going to refresh this, and it's taken a little bit of time, but hopefully it'll refresh this line. Let's see, you can see these dots floating across the top of the screen while it's thinking, and yes, and there it's after updating. So it now says Brad, edit this project, edit this comment. So rather than create a new line item, it's after editing that item, which is great. Now one thing we might do, rather than having to click that refresh button every time we hit this page, why don't we put something in our gallery on our unvisible event. So when this screen appears, we can put in something where we select that refresh button. And I'm not sure what I've called the button. I'm sure I called it something like icon refresh. Let's see, where is it? Down here. All right, now it's just called icon 3. So let's rename that so it's useful. Icon refresh. So now when this page becomes visible, we're going to select that icon refresh. So that will select that button and kind of refresh that list automatically. So once again, let's hop into one of these, the very top one. Let's say it's called demo video. I'm just going to add the kind of code here, or the words edited. Hit save, and I'm going to hit home, and now you can see it automatically refresh that, and I can see that that was edited. Similarly, if I want to create a new item, all I'm going to do is click this item here to create new. It'll give me all these blanks. I'm going to put it into preview mode here and select just myself again. Put in, this is a very new item, and this is for demo. And one thing before I hit save here, one thing I've been noticing is when we hit save, it's not moved to the, let's say, back to the other page. So it might be nice to put in a feature here where after it saves, we might put in a bit of code here just to navigate, so that we navigate back to the original screen. So screen, and I think it's called screen gallery is what we have. So this way, once we save it, it'll return us to the gallery. So now let's hit play, and I'm going to hit save, and hopefully that new item will be in down here, and you can see it's down here. This is a very new item, this is for demo, so it's recognizing whether we're putting in a new item or whether we're selecting an existing item. So if I select an existing item, it's populating all those fields and saving there. So that is a lot of that kind of hard work done of creating a new item or editing an existing item, and I hope that helps.